So I had just been blabbering on for about 5 minutes and the recording didn't work. Let's try this again. Good evening, ghouls and fiends. Welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror. I am just about surviving in the sweltering heat. Your host, Tez. It's a bit of a belated show, but that is because us Brits are not prepared for this sort of weather. But this is your one-stop shop for all the latest in horror news, reviews, and sometimes a featured presentation. Yeah, there's not too much to catch up on because it's been so goddamn hot. Haven't really got around to doing much of anything. Warhammer has been kind of resuming doing the production line type painting of batch painting. I have told myself that unless it's a particular figure, a particular character, like a really cool looking mini, then let's just do the basic 4 or 5 colours just to get it done, get it ready to actually play. But otherwise, if it is a particular sort of model, then I'll make the effort. I'll make the effort to do a semi decent paint job where possible. We can't ask for miracles at this stage, can we? But yeah, that's kind of where I am with the Warhammer. In terms of films, what we have to review on today's show is we've got a variety. We've got the retro horror Motel Hell. It's a film that I've been aware of in terms of hillbilly backwards horror, but I've never actually got around to watching until now. It's available on MGM Plus, so I gave that a watch. Also, Beazle. Excuse me. Beazle is 2024 horror that is available now on Prime. I had seen a trailer for it a little while ago, a snippet of one of the scenes. Thought it looked like it could be decent. The artwork is quite interesting. So, yeah, I've been meaning to give it a watch and see what I think. So you'll hear my review on that later on. Also, The Good Boy, which is known in some territories as Heel, Stephen Graham, British psychological thriller horror. And also based on the video game, the walking simulator video game, Exit 8. I watched that as well. So you'll have my review on that a bit later on. I haven't really done any gaming at all week, actually. Again, it's not as if it's been a super, super busy week. I mean, work has been busy. There has been a lot going on, in general in life in this past week. But yeah, I think it's just because it's been so damn hot. You basically just want to sit down, put your feet up, and try and cool down. Actually, it's not entirely truthful. The Discord will probably note that I did mention that I had paramedics out this week. Yeah, so some stuff did go down this week, actually. I have been on various pain meds due to my ankle operation. A particular pain med due to my ankle operation back in April, which I've still got a cast on for, still recovering for. And I tried to fast track the weaning off of that drug, potentially a bit too quickly. Yeah, the reason being is that I wanted to finally have a pint of lager to watch the football on Tuesday, the England World Cup game. And so I thought, well, okay, I need to make sure that I haven't had that medication for over 24 hours, then safely drink alcohol. So I took that consideration, but I didn't obviously think, well, you really need to be careful weaning yourself off, in a actual process, not just kind of going, well, yeah, I'm sort of going between this dosage and that and stopping. So anyway, the day after, I was quite poorly, slurring my words, couldn't really sit up straight, we couldn't really hold a conversation. Gave my wife a good old panic, just what she needs when she's in her 3rd trimester. And yeah, we had to call 111. Paramedics had to come out due to concerns potentially of mini stroke. I mean, we didn't think that I'd had a stroke, but when there are things such as slurred speech and spaced outness feelings, it's better to be safe than sorry. Typically, about 20 minutes before the paramedics did arrive, I was like, oh, starting to feel a bit better. I'm starting to feel a bit more like myself. So we were considering contacting 111 again to say, can we call off the paramedics, because it feels unnecessary, but then they literally arrived at that point. Very, very friendly people. Felt bad for them working in this heat, but they checked me over. I was completely fine. Nothing to be worried about. So yeah, that's been the most action-packed thing that's happened this week. Right, let's jump in to some horror news as per usual. This all comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Check them out. First up, Friday, just gone, June 26th. 4 new horror movies released at home today. John Squires writes this. The Halloween season can no longer be contained to the months of September and October, with Summerween becoming a thing in recent years. Essentially, it allows for Halloween to blend into the warmer summer months, and the first ever Summerween movie has arrived. The Asylum released Summerween onto digital outlets today. In the film from writer-director Ryan Ebert, on Summerween, a former circus clown escapes a mental institution to return to his abandoned mansion and hunt the teens partying there. Cole Chaplesky, Chase Brythoff, Logan Rowe, Sophia Sobol, and Clint Morrison star. Director Ryan Ebert is the man behind a string of recent indie horrors we've covered, as in Blood Disgusting, including Shark Side of the Moon, The Jolly Monkey, Jurassic Reborn, and Predator Wastelands. Oh, so that's kind of a knockoff Predator Badlands. I mean, it's an Asylum movie. I can't actually say I've ever watched an Asylum film, but they are just known for doing mockbusters, essentially, knockoff of blockbusters. I mean, this looks like an original property, but I mean, a circus clown escapes a mental institution to return to an abandoned... It's your basic setup for a slasher, like an 80s slasher. How that translates into 2026, production values, scares, it's... Those style slashers are still doable. I think Thanksgiving did a very good job of that, but they are kind of few and far between when it's not already like an established franchise like, Scream. Moving on. A witchy coming-of-age story from Dark Sky Films, Camp, is now playing in select theatres. Check your local listings to find a theatre near you. Camp is from the writer-director Avalon Farce, who did Honeycomb and The Serpent's Skin. Emily is the root cause of 2 devastating tragedies very early in her life, and she feels the weight of these accidents as though cursed. At her father's suggestion, she takes a position at a summer camp for troubled youth to ease her guilt. When Emily arrives, she is welcomed by the other counsellors who accept her as she is and surround her with peace and forgiveness. As Emily begins to believe in a new kind of life, she starts to hear a voice whispering from deep in the woods, one that urges her to go home, and one that may be impossible to ignore. The film stars Zola Grimer in her screen debut alongside Alice Wordsworth, Cherry Moore, Leah Rose Sebastianis, Ella Reese, Austin Vanderkamp, Sophie Balk-Smith, Isa Jarvis, and Aidan Laudersmith. Yeah. If it lands on a streamer like Shudder or Prime in the horror section, which it may well do, it's a Dark Skies film, we do tend to get good level of releases of those here in the UK on streamers. I'll check it out. Next, this looks interesting. Producers Tyler Perry and Jason Blum join forces for Peacock original Strung. The film's now streaming only on Peacock. I don't know if we still get Peacock in the UK. It was one of the very many freebies of having Sky, but it has been a while since I've noticed anything for, check this out on Peacock, blah, blah, blah. A talented violinist takes a prestigious job as a music tutor for the gifted daughter of an influential and enigmatic family. As she becomes entangled in their opulent world, unsettling secrets begin to surface, forcing her to question her safety, her dreams, and even her sanity. Malcolm D. Lee directs from a script written by Alan B. McElroy, who did Wrong Turn, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Wow, that's pretty decent pedigree. Chloe Bailey, Lynn Whitfield, Lucian Laviscount, Anna Diop, Coco Jones, Langley Kirkwood, and Romy Wood star in Peacock's Strung. Yeah, it's got quite startling artwork with this wooden mask. Don't know if it'll be any good though, but it looks interesting. And then finally, oh no, I think we've got we've got 2 more. Next up, produced by Diablo Cody, director Meredith Alloway's Forbidden Fruits brought a new coven of witches to the big screen earlier this year, and it's now streaming on Shudder. Lola Tung, Victoria Pedretti, Alexandra Shipp, Gabrielle Union, and Emma Chamberlain star in Forbidden Fruits, released by IFC and Shudder. Free Eden employee Apple secretly runs a witchy femme cult in the basement of the mall store after hours. But when new hire Pumpkin challenges the group's girl boss ways, the women are forced to face their own poisons or succumb to a bloody fate. Forbidden Fruits grabbed me by the neck the very first time I read it, Diablo Cody said. It's one of the craziest, most creative, beautifully bonkers projects I've ever worked on. Megan Navarro writes in her review, Forbidden Fruits may not necessarily forge new terrain in the teen satire space, but Alloway brings so much style and energy to her well-cast, single-location stage play adaptation for the Gen Z crowd. The film is an adaptation of playwright Lily Horton's stage play of The Woman Came the Beginning of Sin, and Through Her We All Die. Okay. We've briefly mentioned this in the news, I think, when it hit cinemas. I don't know. I don't think it's had any sort of UK release, or if it has, it's been a midnight screenings and then dropped off the schedule. I've certainly not really heard much about it in the UK. And then the roundup. The last film on this list is Hungry. All aboard the Swamp Tour from Hell. This hippo isn't playing games. It's available now on digital. Oh. Only in theatres June 3rd, but apparently it's available now on digital. Probably not in the UK, but let's check, because I think the wife would be interested in that one. Prime Video. Hungry. No, The Very Hungry Caterpillar is not what we're looking for. Okay. Is Backrooms on here yet? Jesus Christ. Is Backrooms available to pre-order? Release date coming soon. Okay. No. Alright, well that is it for the new horror releases. Let's move on to a couple more news bits before we then get into these reviews. Skeletons. Willa Fitzgerald joins Carl Garner in Strange Darling director's Creature feature, John Squires writes. Both Willa Fitzgerald and Carl Garner will reunite with their Strange Darling filmmaker J.T. Molnar for Skeletons, an upcoming Creature feature that also stars Brie Larson. Deadline additionally reports that Iron Sky and Diatho O'Haragain have signed on. From Sony Pictures, Skeletons is said to be a modern take on the Creature horror film. J.J. Abrams is producing. Molnar will direct from a script by Brian Duffield, based on the short story Failsafe by Philip Fracassi. Skeletons is told from the perspective of a young boy who slowly begins to discover that his beloved parents are hiding a disturbing secret about his mother's true nature. The film hails from Infrared, Bad Robot Productions, and Assemble Media. Strange Darling was a real surprise for me. I remember going to see it actually on my birthday. The wife took me to a late screening because it didn't have that many screenings already. It's one of those films in the UK that almost gets sent out to die. And we went to a late screening, and there was only like 2 other people in there, and they were both chatty. But I absolutely loved it. The fact that it was shot on, I don't think it's 35mm, it might be 21mm, but it's shot on film. It looks beautiful. Performances are excellent. I love the way that the story twists and turns. It ticked all the boxes for me. I've got it somewhere on the shelf behind me. I think I might have a steelbook, perhaps. Willa Fitzgerald being in a film with Carl Garner and J.T. Molnar. That's no questions about it. I'm going to have to watch that. I'm very, very excited to see what they can do next because, as I say, Strange Darling, surprise hit for me. Really, really knocked my socks off. Don't Move first look. James Murray and McLean Nelson preview giant spider horror feature that's better than the book, Megan Navarro writes. Spiders No Laughing Matter in Don't Move, the upcoming horror movie from Impractical Joker star James Murray and director McLean Nelson. Don't Move adapts the 2020 novel of the same name from co-authors Murray and Darren Weirmouth, unleashing a prehistoric arachnid upon an unsuspecting church group's annual retreat. It's massive and it hunts by vibration. The Creature feature is the first under Murray's new banner, Impractical Studios, designed to bring his authored works and love of horror to mainstream audiences. Murray has big plans for Impractical Studios. The multi-hyphenate talent teases an adaptation of his holiday slasher novel as he explains the origins of his new label. The idea for that was I've written 9 thriller novels with major publishing houses, 3 with HarperCollins, 3 with Penguin Random House, 2 with Blackstone, 2 with St. Martin's Press. Big publishing houses. The idea being that I would create the IP, create the big ideas. I love horror so much and I love writing thrillers. I have a degree in English and literature, so the idea was that I'd create the worlds I want to see on film and then eventually partner with people like McLean who adapted Don't Move into the screenplay. Don't Move comes out this September, and then next year we're going to make You Better Watch Out, my serial killer thriller I wrote, and then so on and so forth down the line. Okay, there's quite a bit more here, but the artwork doesn't give too much away. You can basically see the enormous maw of this incredibly big arachnid dripping with, like, venom and whatever else they drip with. Opposite the face of someone who's covered in webbing, whose just eyes are all wide and bug-eyed. Spider horror is one of those things that, on paper, there should be tons of amazing ones, because, Christ, what is one of the most universal innate fears that people have, really for no really true good reason, is spiders. And of course, we've had arachnophobia. There's been films like Sting, Arachnid, Giant Spider, whatever. There's quite a few of them. Arachnophobia is the only real famous one. Sting did have some hype to it, but it has already kind of come and gone. We did have it, the French horror Infested, which is very good. But I guess my point being is that we haven't had one that has, like, launched a franchise. We haven't had, a particular spider horror film that has, been like, oh my god, that particular scene was terrifying, which I do just find quite odd. It's you'd expect, because so many people are afraid of spiders, that there'd be obviously Eight-Legged Freaks, but that was more of a comedy horror. Yeah, I mean, last I heard, Mur had been cancelled, but I don't know if that was one of those things that came about and then there was nothing behind it or what. I don't know. Obviously, don't come for me if I've missaid anything. But fair play. I used to watch Impractical Jokers. I haven't seen it for years. I do sort of feel at this stage, like, how can they be tricking people, because everyone knows who they are and they'd instantly know that they're on camera. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? And then finally, Lee Cronen's The Mummy makes streaming debut next week, Megan Navarro writes. Get ready to unwrap Lee Cronen's The Mummy, as it's heading to streaming just in time for the 4th of July holiday weekend. The horror movie will make its global streaming debut exclusively on HBO Max on Friday, July 3rd. The film will debut on HBO Linear on Saturday, July 4th at 8 PM ET. The gory reimagining of a Universal horror classic follows a journalist's young daughter disappearing into the desert without a trace. 8 years later, the broken family is shocked when she is returned to them, as what should be a joyful reunion turns into a living nightmare. Jack Rayner, Layla Costa, May Calamway, Natalie Grace, Veronica Falcon lead the cast. It was decent. It was decent. I felt like, in terms of Lee Cronen's work, I wouldn't say I thought it was better than Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise I did think was really good. I mean, it's not my favourite Evil Dead film, but it was a solid entry and it had some really cool moments. Yeah, I guess this does fall into that area of, similar to Wolfman, like, why are we doing... it's great that we've got Universal horror properties, but why are we not just doing a Universal horror film? I don't know why they just can't make a good modern Dracula, a good modern Wolfman, a good modern... I mean, you could say with Frankenstein, the Netflix one, but it was decent. It was a one watch for me. It was a bit long. I mean, that's probably just my attention span holding me back there. But yeah, I think, it's an unconventional film. I would argue it didn't really have a mummy in it, but, unconventional. It's a new take on it, whatever. But I do sort of feel that it was set in Egypt, yes. There was a sarcophagus, yes. Wrapped skin, yes. Those little bug things. But other than that, did I think it was what I would consider the Mummy type film? No. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. And I think if you like Lee Cronen's other work, definitely check it out. It's a decent modern horror film. But just don't go in expecting, a modern take on on that tale. Anyway, it is now time that we move on to some horror reviews. We're going to start off with our retro review, Motel Hell. Now, with all our horror reviews on the Ministry of Horror, I'm going to talk a little bit about the plot. I'm going to give you some highs and some lows for me personally. Then I'm going to give you my score out of 10. It's just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. Let me know in the comments or the chat and tell me how wrong I am. So Motel Hell is a 1980 American comedy horror film directed by Kevin Connor and starring Rory Calhoun, Nancy Parsons, and Nina Axelrod. The plot follows farmer, butcher, motel manager, and meat entrepreneur Vincent Smith, who, with the help of his sister Ida, traps travellers and harvests them for his human sausages. The film's screenplay was written by brothers Robert and Stephen Charles Jaffe, who also served as producers. Okay, so I knew absolutely nothing going into this other than it's been a recommendation if you're a fan of The Hills Have Eyes, if you're a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1980. It's right in that kind of period of where you just got all the incredible late 70s, 80s horror slashers, rednecks, those sorts of things. Double drink, and I kind of wondered how this had completely been off my radar and it'd never become like a must-watch. Like when I was growing up, you hear about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, especially in the UK because it was banned for a number of decades. It was a big deal when it became available to watch on like Channel 4 or to buy. Same with The Exorcist. And through my kind of formative years, you would then do these deep dives on what other films are there? Are there sequels? What are these other sorts of ones? And Motel Hell, kind of similar to like Blood Diner, I've just been aware of it. I've just never really gone, oh, you know what? I really want to watch that. Because I've never heard like people saying, it is incredible. This scene in particular, you got to see it. So ultimately, I knew nothing going in. Farmer Vincent Smith and his younger sister Ida live on a farm with an attached motel named Motel Hello. Vincent's renowned smoked meat is actually human flesh. He sets traps on nearby roads to catch victims. He buries the victims up to their necks in his secret garden, then cuts their vocal cords to prevent them from screaming. They are kept in the ground and fed until they are ready for harvest. Ida helps Vincent as they both see the victims as animals. Vincent shoots out the front tire of a couple's motorcycle. The man, Bo, is placed in the garden, but Vincent brings the woman, Terry, to the motel. Sheriff Bruce, Vincent's naive younger brother, arrives the next morning. Vincent tells Terry her boyfriend died in the accident and was buried. A trip to the graveyard shows his crude grave marker. With nowhere to go, Terry decides to stay at the motel. She gradually becomes attracted to Vincent's honest manner and folksy charm, much to the dismay of Bruce, who tries to woo her without success. It is a comedy horror. It's got that kind of Carry On sort of vibe, but with horror going on. It's a bizarre film. The relationship with Vincent and Ida, there seems to be some incestuous want on Ida's behalf towards Vincent, which is just bizarre. The non-screaming heads in the ground is just so weird. It's an interesting look, you go into this garden and you can see these sacks on the ground, and every so often they'll start moving. And when they, Ida and Vincent come along to take the sack off, it's these people there going, they've got no vocal cord. And they're there being fed through a tube or being kind of shown this hypnotic device before then being pulled out to be harvested. There's no particularly memorable kills in this or anything that kind of sticks out as a landmark moment. But what I will say is the finale. The finale is horror territory. It's very, very interesting. It involves a battle with chainsaws, because obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre was huge business only, 6 years prior to this, with Vincent wearing a pig's head as a mask. So visually, it harkens to, I think this was a later film, Stage Fright with the owl head, and obviously the pig's head is then many, many years later became synonymous with Jigsaw. But it does work, you know. This guy stalking you round a meat packing area with a chainsaw with a pig's head. You know, I think if the film had a more consistent tone earlier on, then I think you'd have felt a bit more tension going into that finale. But the finale is worth getting to, I do think. It's creepy, and it's the sort of thing where it's like, I kind of just wish that the tone of this lent more into the horror than this weird mix of, like, you know, flirty humour. It just didn't really work for me. I think overall I'm going to give Motel Hell 6 out of 10. The finale for it saved it for me. I mean, I now see why it's not an infamous horror film. You know, it's not up there with Texas Chainsaw or, you know, Halloween, but it does have some notoriety. It's inventive, the heads in the ground, and the finale. But yeah, tonally, it was just a bit of a mishmash for me. So 6 out of 10 for Motel Hell. Moving on to Beazle 2024. Directed by Aaron Fradkin, written by Aaron Fradkin and Victoria Fradkin, starring Bob Gallagher, Lejon Woods, and Nicholas Robin. Over 60 years, 3 guests of a cursed home discover an eternal witch who lives beneath it with an insatiable thirst for living souls. Yeah, there's no Wikipedia. There is just this blurb on IMDb. So I'm going to have to rely on my memory through this heat wave of watching this almost a week ago. It does essentially feel like an anthology because we are focusing on a number of separate stories that are interconnected by the fact that this satanic witchcraft thing, curse, has been going on in this household. It's helped by the fact that the gore in it is quite good, and I've just seen on the trailer here that it's by, you know, the producers of the Terrifier series. So that does make sense. But the story is just, it's a bit all over the place. It opens with a kid being killed, which is just like, it just feels cheap because for a long, long time in Hollywood and television, that was just a big no-no. So it would be shocking when that would happen. I know X-Files had a particular episode, I want to say series 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5. It was definitely in that first half of its run, the best half of its run, where there was a particular moment that was just shocking. But with this, it just feels a bit, you know, just a bit of a cheap scare. It's a very disjointed film. Some of the acting is really quite subpar. Some of it is not terrible. Lejon Woods, his part in the first story is pretty decent. That's probably one of the better stories in the film, where it's focusing on the original husband whose wife seems to have been infected by this sort of curse, but it's never really clear, like, are they becoming possessed and then doing these things, or is there actually a witch in the house? Well, there is actually a witch in the house, but then at certain points she is then possessing, or, you know, it was just a bit like, well, this would be a cool scene, you know, this would be a cool scene. There wasn't really a huge amount of thought that went into structuring a narrative that would be, you know, engaging from the first minute. I'm going to have to give Beazle 4 out of 10. There's a couple of good scenes in it, but overall it's an anthology film that isn't an anthology film. It's a collection of moments, really, that's just not got a strong enough story to tie it all together. Moving on to Good Boy, which is, I think it's called The Good Boy, but yeah, Good Boy, also known as Heel, so not to be mixed up with the indie film, with Indy the dog, The Good Boy, or Good Boy, whatever. We'll call it Heel from now on. Is a 2025 black comedy thriller directed by Jan Komasa. It stars Stephen Graham, Andrea Riseborough, Anson Boone, and Kit Rakusin. It tells the story of a married couple who abduct a 19-year-old criminal and try various methods to rehabilitate him. 19-year-old Tommy is a foul-mouthed, drug-abusing delinquent with a penchant for antisocial behaviour and violence, both of which he records and uploads to his Instagram profile page. During a night out with his girlfriend Gabby, Tommy becomes heavily intoxicated and is separated from his friends. He's then abducted on the street by an unknown assailant. Macedonian national Rena meets with a man named Chris to interview for a housekeeping job. Chris invites her to his large countryside home where she signs a non-disclosure agreement and undergoes a tour of the house, meeting Chris's reclusive wife Catherine and their 10-year-old son Jonathan. While viewing the cellar downstairs, Rena discovers an unconscious Tommy chained to the wall. She attempts to flee, but Chris stops her and says he is aware of her past and precarious visa situation. Following a threat to call his contact in the Home Office, Rena agrees to take the job. So, this film is essentially driven by the performances of Stephen Graham and Anson Boone. I mean, Anson Boone I've only seen in... I forget the name of it now. I think it's Mobland. Mobland on Paramount Plus. I do need to see if there is a season 2 yet, because season 1 was very good. I'm aware that for season 3, Tom Hardy's been fired. Don't really know about that, but I'm not actually aware if season 2 has been released yet. But I remember Anson Boone in that, and he's playing a similar role in this, entitled Gobshite, basically. He does play it well. I mean, I haven't seen him in much else, so I don't know if he actually has any range or if he's just playing himself. If he's playing himself, then doesn't seem like a nice person, but if he's just acting, of course, he's very, very good. And Stephen Graham is just one of our most elite actors at the moment, coming from the UK. You look back at like This Is England, obviously Adolescence recently, tons of roles that he's had that have really just he's just been incredible in pretty much all of them. And in this one, he's sort of playing this like this falsely posh, well-to-do type individual. And I say that because there is a moment where, he's always got his hair perfectly done. He's got this huge house. Like, how do they afford this house? What does he do as a job? There's a lot of open to interpretation in this film. There's a lot of potential allusions to what could be the cause. There's mention that Tommy believes that he must be police because of how he knows things. He must be ex-police. He does have a number of, gadgets like a shotgun, not shotgun, but like a taser, I should say. Also seems to know very, a lot about engineering because of setting up this whole metal collar that's on Tommy, which that then goes much further in the story later on around the house. But you have to ask the questions like, does their kid not go to school, or how do they just own this house out here? Like, there's a lot where I do sort of feel that you can leave certain things up to interpretation, of course, and I do like that because it makes you ask questions as a viewer. It makes, sometimes it's a case of, oh, did you notice this part? That explains this, or this is just how I interpreted the story. But I do feel that if you have too many of those moments, it then almost becomes plot holes, and then almost becomes, potentially lazy writing. On the whole, I did enjoy the good boy or heel. The ending was a little bit... The ending was interesting. I didn't hate the ending, but I could see how it could be quite divisive. And the performances in this are excellent. I think it's Kit Rakusin who plays the youngster in the family. He is very good. And Andrea Riseborough, yeah, she's very withdrawn for the majority of the film, but there are moments where it's like, okay, well, she actually can be quite cruel. The housekeeper smokes and keeps it secret because they don't want smoking in the house. A packet of cigarettes is found by the young kid, and I think he has one smoke, but they ask him about it, like, oh, we found these. Why are you smoking? And he could tell straight away he's terrified. So that obviously gives the idea that they have such a happy family life, but one slip up and there is going to be consequences. And the consequences in this is she makes him smoke the entire packet. One of those things where it's you would hear it growing up of, oh, get your mouth washed out with soap for swearing, or get caught smoking, then you'll be forced to smoke the entire packet and see how you like it then, that sort of thing. But you don't really think that actually happens, or certainly not these days where there's a lot of gentle parenting or nanny state and all that bollocks. But in this, you get the actual cruelness of that they're loving parents, but there are rules and you have to follow the rules. So in a roundabout way, I feel that there was a bit too much vagueness. I think I would have liked a bit more of a glimmer of what happened to there's a room in the house. Was it a son of theirs that has gone AWOL or whatever, and that's why they're doing this? Was it they've been doing this sort of rehabilitation a long time or whatever? You know, a lot of questions are left to make you ask questions, but I feel that you can smatter in some bits of information to help filling some of the blanks, I feel. And maybe that's just me being dumb, but I do feel that held it back a bit. I'm going to give Good Boy 7 out of 10, though, because I think the performances in this are excellent. Overall, I found it quite gripping. I do just feel that you could have given us a little bit more of a hint at backstory, or a little bit more of a hint at what may have actually happened with certain characters. I just feel peppering in quite a few interesting tidbits, but leaving a lot of pretty much all of those tidbits open to interpretation is just it's just a little bit lazy, I think. But anyway, we'll move on. 7 out of 10. And now on to Exit 8. A Japanese mystery psychological horror film directed by Genki Kawamura, who co-wrote the screenplay with Kentaro Hirasi, based on the 2023 video game The Exit 8, developed by Kotaki Create. The film stars Kazunari Ninomiya as an unnamed man who is caught in a looping subway corridor and must find anomalies in each loop to escape. While on a subway, a man, dubbed the Lost Man, witnesses another man scolding a mother for failing to calm her crying baby. The Lost Man then receives a call from his ex-girlfriend, informing him that she is pregnant with his child and asking him what to do. He loses connection while trying to exit the station and finds himself in a deserted, endlessly looping corridor. Reading a set of instructions, the Lost Man learns that he needs to reach Exit 8 by turning back whenever the corridor has an anomaly and moving forward when there is none. Anomalies can range from faces on posters tracking his movements to blood raining from the ceiling. Any mistake returns him to Exit 0, resetting his progress. So I actually do have Exit 8. I've got it on Switch, and I played it for all of 5-10 minutes. I'm not that much of a... I'm a gamer, but I'm not that much of a gamer where I dive into a lot of indie games. I'm not like, I need it to be a AAA game, I need incredible graphics. Some of my favourite games are like A Night in the Woods, or God, what's that Telltale game with the wolf? Wolf Among Us. I do. I don't know if they're considered indie, but like Life is Strange from the start. I think the first one was an indie game, but it's probably not now. My point being is that I'm not someone that will be on Steam playing tens of games every day or every week, So a lot of these games that come by, that streamers, I will say, will play to death. They never land on my radar. But Exit 8 did, and I didn't really. I just sort of kept walking as fast as I could without really getting the gist of stop, focus, take it all in. And after watching the Exit 8, the film, I definitely do want to revisit the game and play it again. Just re-download it onto the Switch. Performances in this are very, very good. Kazunori Ninomiya is excellent as the Lost Man, and he does a really good job of initially. There's the immersion because the film does start in first person, and the game is a first person game before then focusing, on the action from a third person perspective. But the way that the camera tracks behind him keeps you constantly knowing that we're either moving forward or we are going back because there has been an anomaly. It's not like a super scary film. There aren't really any sort of jump scares. There's no moments that made me go like, shudder or jump or anything like that. But it has given me a taste of, I can never pronounce it, luminal horror, which is why I do really want to watch The Backrooms. This idea being of going through boring, mundane settings that repeat and are never ending, but there's something slightly wrong there. There's something which doesn't quite fit. And his process, the Lost Man that we do focus on for a large chunk of the story, it's given me ideas of how to play the game. Like, right, what are the main landmarks in this area? Okay, we've got this type of poster, we've got that type of poster, we've got an air vent, we've got a door, we've got a door, we've got a man walking past. The man's suddenly following me and smiling. You know, that's obviously creepy. But what do I need to remember? Well, this is an anomaly. This is not how it normally happens. I need to go back the way I came and not just panic and run. So sorry, dogs are going mental outside. So I appreciate the story from that perspective. I think there are some dog walkers outside with an enormous dog that looks like it's going to try and eat another dog, and now my dogs are going mental downstairs. Bailey's howling. Anyway, we'll wrap this up because we got the show to finish. Anyway, Exit 8 is very good. If it's available to rent or buy now on Prime, but it is dubbed. I know it's dubbed. What am I talking about? It is subtitles. There's no dubbing. I do prefer to watch film with subtitles over listening to it with dubbing. I do find that I don't watch that many foreign language films these days with subtitles just because of availability, time, whatnot. You know, I know that my wife won't want to watch a film like this. I can't really watch it during the day because of work. So I'm very out of the loop with foreign language cinema. But I wanted to make an exception to ensure to watch Exit 8, and I had a great time. So this isn't going to be done on purpose, but I would like to give the Exit 8 an 8 out of 10. It's just, it is a pretty damn good film, and I think it's quite effective. So, Ghouls and Fiends, that wraps it up for another edition of the Ministry of Horror. Be sure to like, follow, share, whatever platform of choice you have, social media. TikTok is the ever-growing one, but, you know, Instagram, starting to build up, you know, YouTube as well. Check out those, spam likes on all the videos, you know. Let's help get these videos and audios, you know, seen and listened to and whatever. Just help the channel grow. If you really want to help the channel, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. A number of different tiers there that really help keep the lights on. You'll get bonus content, and there is an archive of bonus podcasts and little additional things there. Also in the archives is 28. 'God, I've already gone blank on it. 28 slave. I don't know. There's a number. The heat is still getting to me. But there's additional podcasts over there. So we have to give a shout out to our tiered members, JP, and of course, the Gruff. That's it. That's it for another show. We will be back, hopefully a bit earlier next week. Hopefully we're not going to have the return of the heatwave too soon, but it is looking like we've got basically like 7 days before we're back into the sweltering heat. Anyway, I've been Tez. I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.